There are moments in history when the powerless discover their true strength, not through grand declarations or loud threats, but through the quiet, steely resolve that comes from having absolutely nothing left to lose. This is the story of how humanity learned that lesson, a story written in the cold vacuum of space and sealed with the fire of retribution. I stood at the observation deck of the human embassy station, my gaze fixed on the distant gleam of the Galactic Council headquarters. The crystalline structure rotated slowly against a backdrop of a deep purple nebula, a vision of beauty and utter indifference. For an hour, I'd been staring. My own reflection, a ghostly presence in the reinforced glass. Behind me, the sound of hurried footsteps announced the arrival I had been dreading. "Ambassador," Colonel Nathan Pierce said, his voice quiet but strained. "The vote concluded 10 minutes ago." His uniform was, as always, immaculate, but his face carried the deep weariness of a man who had witnessed far too many defeats. "New Perth is lost. The Thaldorian Dominion claimed it under Article 73. The Council voted 681 to 114 in their favor." I closed my eyes. New Perth. The lush green garden world where my sister was raising her 3 children. The world where 2 million human souls had built something beautiful from raw, untamed wilderness. Gone. Simply handed over to the Thaldorians because their voracious mining corporations coveted the rare elements buried deep beneath those carefully tended farms. "How long do our people have?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. 4 months to evacuate." Nathan's voice was laced with a barely contained anger. "They're offering the standard compensation package, relocation vouchers that will cover maybe a third of what they'll actually need to start over somewhere else." He took a step closer. "This is the 7th world we've lost in 20 years, Olivia. The 7th time the Council has decided that human claims matter less than everyone else's convenience." I finally turned to face him. Nathan Pierce had served in the Human Defense Fleet for 30 years. He had fought in 3 brutal border conflicts, all of them defensive, all against species who saw human space as a buffet, ripe for the picking. The network of scars on his left cheek was a permanent reminder of a Cravathi raid that had killed his entire crew. He only survived by hiding in a damaged escape pod for 6 agonizing days. "They think we're cattle," Nathan continued, his fists clenching at his sides. "Useful for labor, good for filling empty colonies that nobody else wants, but not worth respecting. Every time we protest, they just pat us on the head and tell us we're too young, too naive to understand the complex tapestry of galactic politics." "Maybe they're right," I said softly, testing the words on my tongue. "We've only been out here for 240 years. The Thaldorians have had star travel for 8,000. The Viridian Collective has existed for 20,000. Who are we to challenge their ancient wisdom?" Nathan stared at me, his eyes hard. "You don't believe that for a second." "No," I agreed, my voice firming. "I don't. But they do, and that's what matters." I walked past him toward my office, gesturing for him to follow. The embassy station was small, designed with purely functional architecture. The galaxy had long ago standardized everything, optimized everything, and in the process, made everything efficient and utterly soulless. Inside my office, I activated the privacy screen and locked the door. On my desk sat a single data chip, unmarked and unremarkable. I had been carrying it for 3 weeks, ever since my last private conversation with Admiral Thomas Blackwood, the head of Earth's deep space operations. "What's that?" Nathan asked, nodding toward the chip. "A question," I replied. "And maybe, just maybe, an answer. The Admiral asked me something when we last spoke. He asked if I thought the Council would ever truly recognize humanity as equals." "That's not a question that needs asking," Nathan scoffed. "That's what I told him. And then he asked me another question. He asked if I was willing to be wrong, if I was willing to give them one more chance to do the right thing, knowing that they wouldn't, so that when the time came, no one could ever say we didn't try every peaceful option available to us." Nathan's expression shifted from anger to a dawning, cautious understanding. "Olivia, what are you saying?" I placed my hand on the data chip but didn't pick it up. My fingers traced its smooth, cool surface. For 20 years, Earth's military has followed every council directive to the letter. We've limited our fleet size, restricted our weapons development, and operated under the naive assumption that being good galactic citizens would eventually earn us their respect. The Admiral has been asking, what would happen if we stopped limiting ourselves? If we stopped playing by a set of rules that were designed from the very start to keep us weak? That's treason against council law, Nathan stated carefully, the words hanging heavy in the air. Building a military beyond sanctioned limits is a direct violation of the Sapient Species Protection Act. That act was never about protection, I countered, my voice sharp. It was about control. It was written to prevent younger species like us from ever challenging the established order. The silence in the room was absolute. Outside the window, a Thaldorian cargo vessel, massive and arrogant in its design, drifted past. All sharp angles and aggressive lines, built to intimidate. Human ships were smaller, sleeker, designed for efficiency, not for show. That was how the Council preferred us. Small, efficient, knowing our place. The chip contains coordinates, I said finally, breaking the tension. Locations of hidden shipyards, clandestine research facilities, and secret weapons development centers that Earth has been operating in violation of Council restrictions. For 15 years, while we've been bowing and scraping, accepting every insult, and watching our worlds get stolen, we've also been preparing. The Admiral wanted you to know. He wanted you to have a choice. Nathan reached out slowly, his fingers closing around the chip. A choice to do what? To stay here and continue being humanity's voice in a council that refuses to listen, I said, my voice steady despite the slight tremor in my hands. Or to go home and help prepare for the day when talking stops being enough. My gaze met his. I'm staying. Someone has to be here to witness what happens next. Someone has to be the one who keeps trying diplomacy right up until the very last moment. But you, Nathan, you're a soldier. If this turns into something more than political theater, Earth will need every experienced officer it has. Nathan held the chip up to the light, watching it gleam. How bad is it going to get? He asked, his voice low. I don't know, I admitted honestly. Maybe nothing happens. Maybe the Council eventually realizes they can't keep pushing us forever. Maybe we build enough quiet strength that they finally decide we're worth respecting after all. Or maybe we end up at war with half the galaxy. He finished my thought. Maybe. Nathan pocketed the chip. I'll request a transfer back to Earth. Family emergency. No one will question it. He paused at the door, turning back one last time. For what it's worth, Olivia, I think you're right to stay. When this all goes wrong, someone needs to be here to tell our story. Someone needs to make sure the galaxy knows we didn't want this. After he left, I returned to the observation deck. I stood there for a long, long time, watching the Council headquarters spin slowly in the endless, silent darkness. Somewhere inside that beautiful, crystalline structure, hundreds of species were conducting their business, making their decisions, completely oblivious. They never once considered that the small, weak, insignificant humans they so casually dismissed might just have their own plans. And in that moment, I knew that the galaxy was about to learn a very old, very human lesson. Never, ever underestimate those who have nothing left to lose. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more tales from the edge of the galaxy. We'll see you next time. The message arrived 6 months after Nathan Pierce returned to Earth. I was in my quarters late at night, trying to make sense of agricultural reports from the New Perth evacuation when my private comms terminal chimed. It was an encrypted signal. Military intelligence bounced through 17 different relays to hide its origin. I opened it. It wasn't a text message, but a video. Admiral Blackwood's face filled the screen. He looked older than I remembered, or maybe just weary. He was always formal with me, even after 15 years. Ambassador Reeves, he began, I wanted you to see this before it becomes public. His voice was heavy. 3 days ago, the Cravathi swarm launched an unprovoked attack on the human research colony at Epsilon Tertius. They destroyed the settlement, 14,000 civilians are dead. No survivors. My blood ran cold. Epsilon Tertius. I'd been there. It was a xenobiology station, filled with scientists and their families. I remembered seeing children playing tag in the hydroponics gardens, their laughter echoing through the humid air. They claimed it was retaliation for human vessels entering their territory, Blackwood continued, his voice tight with anger. That's a lie. Our ships were in documented neutral space. He explained how they brought irrefutable evidence to the Galactic Council, sensor logs, debris analysis, eyewitness testimony from nearby stations. The Council deliberated for a mere 4 hours. Their decision? A statement of regret. They suggested both sides engage in dialogue to prevent future misunderstandings. Blackwood's jaw clenched. The Cravathi ambassador laughed during the proceedings. Actually laughed. He took a deep breath, the blue glow of tactical displays reflecting in his tired eyes. Earth's government has made a decision. We're done asking for permission. We're done accepting whatever scraps the galaxy decides to throw our way. We're done watching our people die because we're too polite to defend ourselves. Operation Awakening begins in 30 days. The video ended, leaving me in the darkness, my heart pounding against my ribs. I had known a storm was coming, but I never imagined the force with which it would strike. In the weeks that followed, I saw the galaxy through new eyes. The Council quickly moved on, the Epsilon Tertius massacre already a footnote in their long, indifferent history. The Thaldorians started surveying another human colony, their intentions transparent. The Viridian Collective proposed new restrictions on human exploration rights. It was business as usual. The great grinding machine of galactic civilization didn't care about the suffering of those it deemed too weak to matter. But I noticed other things too. Human merchant vessels started arriving at the embassy station more often. Their cargo manifests were clean, but the crews, they were different. There was a new energy in their eyes, a carefulness in their words. The quiet resignation I had grown so used to in our people had been replaced by something harder, something sharper, something dangerous. Then, Colonel Diana Foster arrived to replace Nathan as my military liaison. She was young, efficient, and had the calculating gaze of a master strategist. In our first meeting, she placed a small humming device on my desk. Signal jammer, she explained without preamble. The Council has monitoring devices all over this station. They've been watching you for years, Ambassador. I always assumed they were, I admitted. What do you need to tell me that requires this much caution? Her expression turned grave. Earth wants you to know what's coming. Not the specifics, but enough for you to prepare. She leaned forward slightly. We've built a fleet. Not the small defense force the Council authorized, but a real fleet. 300 capital ships, twice that many support vessels. We have weapon systems the Council can't even imagine. I could feel my heart hammering. A fleet that size, the resources, how? A flicker of pride touched her voice. Everywhere, every human colony, every station, every settlement, people gave what they could, not because the government demanded it, but because they were tired of being victims. A farmer on New Perth donated his life savings before evacuating. Factory workers on Europa volunteered for double shifts without pay. Scientists worked in secret for years developing technology the Council said we weren't ready for. She looked me straight in the eye. Humanity came together, Ambassador. All 8 billion of us, spread across 40 worlds, united by one simple desire. To never again watch our children die while the rest of the galaxy just shrugs. When? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Soon. The fleet is moving into position now. We're not looking for a fight, but we are ready to respond the moment anyone pushes us again. And they will push. The Thaldorians are already sending survey teams to Darwin Station. They'll claim it within a month. When they do, when they come to take another human world and expect us to just roll over, they're going to discover that humanity has learned some new words. What words? I asked. Diana's smile was cold, sharp as shattered glass. No, and never again. The next few weeks were the longest of my life. I went through the motions, council sessions, diplomatic functions, endless small talk. I maintained the facade of business as usual, but every morning I woke with the same thought. Is today the day? Every night I listened to the station's hum, waiting for the alarms that would signal the beginning of something terrible and something necessary. The announcement came on a Tuesday. The Thaldorian ambassador, a towering figure named Corvus, rose during an open council session. He formally declared their intention to assume administration of Darwin Station. The justification was lazy, almost insulting. Inefficient human management, galactic interests, the greater good. I stood to respond. My hands were steady. My voice was clear. The people of Darwin Station number 3 million. They have lived there for 60 years. They will not be moved. Corvus made a dismissive gesture with one of his forearms. Human attachment to dirt is noted and disregarded. The council will vote. The outcome is predetermined. Accept the inevitable with grace, Ambassador Reeves. No, I said. The entire chamber fell silent. That one word, spoken with absolute conviction, seemed to hang in the air, echoing in the vast space. I'm sorry? Corvus's translator dripped with condescending amusement. No, I repeated louder this time. Humanity will not surrender Darwin Station. We will not evacuate. We will not accept compensation. We will not comply. If the Thaldorian Dominion attempts to seize our territory, they will be met with force. The silence deepened. Hundreds of species from across the galaxy stared at me, the human ambassador who had just uttered heresy against the galactic order. Even the ancient Valdorian observer stirred, its shadowy form seeming to coalesce. You threaten war, human? Your species lacks the strength for such posturing. I met its gaze without flinching. We're not threatening anything. We are simply informing the Council that humanity's patience has reached its end. Take that information and do with it what you will. I gathered my things and walked out of the chamber. Behind me, chaos erupted, a tidal wave of outrage, confusion, and speculation. But I didn't look back. A new era for humanity had just begun. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see what happens next, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot more to explore together. See you in the next one. 4 days later, the Thaldorian fleet arrived at Darwin Station. 50 warships, each a masterpiece of intimidation, designed over millennia of military supremacy. They emerged from hyperspace in a formation meant to cow and overwhelm, their weapons arrays lit, their communications broadcasting demands for immediate surrender. They expected a dozen human ships, maybe less, and a terrified population. Instead, they found themselves facing something the galaxy had never seen before. 300 human warships materialized all around them. They emerged from behind Darwin Station, from the moon's shadow, from concealment fields that flickered off to reveal sleek vessels bristling with weapons. They moved with a precision that spoke of absolute confidence. Aboard the ESS Defiance, humanity's first true battleship, Admiral Blackwood watched the Thaldorian fleet hesitate, their formations wavering. He saw the confusion ripple through their ranks. Open a channel, Blackwood ordered. All frequencies. I want every ship in this system and every listening post within 100 light years to hear this. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, Admiral. Blackwood stood, his voice carrying the weight of 2 centuries of grievances. I am Admiral Thomas Blackwood of the Earth Defense Fleet. To the Thaldorian vessels currently threatening Darwin Station, you have one opportunity to withdraw. Leave the system immediately and no harm will come to you. Refuse, and you will discover that humanity is no longer the weak prey you remember. The Thaldorian commander's response was dripping with arrogance. Human, your posturing is meaningless. You may have assembled ships, but you lack the technology, the experience, and the will to use them. The Council will hear of this illegal military buildup. Stand down before you embarrass yourselves further. This is your final warning, Blackwood said quietly. Leave now. The Thaldorians opened fire. Particle beams, weapons that had conquered 100 worlds, lanced across space. They struck the human shields, which flared brilliant blue and held. Not a single ship took damage. For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, the human fleet responded. New weapons, developed in secret for 15 years. Weapons the Council never knew existed. Magnetic accelerator cannons firing projectiles at a fraction of light speed. Plasma missiles burning with the heat of young stars. Electronic warfare systems that tore through Thaldorian networks like paper. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, 40 Thaldorian warships drifted as burning wreckage. 10 managed to retreat, carrying with them the story of what had happened. Not a single human vessel had been destroyed. Aboard the Defiance, Blackwood watched the debris field slowly expand. He felt no joy, only a deep sadness mixed with grim determination. "Send a message to Earth," he said. "Tell them Phase 1 is complete, and send another message to Ambassador Reeves at the Council. She needs to know what happened here." The news hit the Galactic Council like a shockwave. Ambassador Olivia Reeves entered the emergency session to find complete turmoil. Representatives were shouting, accusations flying. The Thaldorian delegation looked on with murderous rage. When Olivia took her place, the chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to her, and for the first time she saw fear in them. The Valdorian observer spoke first, his voice cutting through the tension. "Humanity has committed an act of war. This aggression cannot stand. Explain yourself, Ambassador Reeves." Olivia stood slowly, thinking of every injustice, every dismissal, every life lost while the Council stood by. "For 200 years, she began, her voice steady and clear. "Humanity has tried to be good members of galactic society. We followed your rules. We accepted your judgments. We watched as you took our worlds, ignored our dead, and laughed at our protests." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We finally realized we were asking the wrong question. The problem was never what we were doing wrong. The problem was that you never intended to treat us as equals. You built a system to keep younger species perpetually subordinate, and you called it civilization. You created laws that allowed you to take whatever you wanted, and you called it justice." The Thaldorian ambassador, Corvus, stepped forward. "You murdered thousands of Thaldorian warriors. You will face consequences for this atrocity." "Your warriors fired first," Olivia replied calmly. "They attacked human vessels defending human territory. We responded. That's not murder. That's self-defense. And yes, there will be consequences, but perhaps not the ones you imagine." She activated her data terminal, broadcasting the specifications of the human fleet to every screen in the chamber. Weapons capabilities, training records, resource allocation, everything laid bare. "This is what humanity has built while you weren't paying attention. This is what happens when you push a species too far, when you mistake patience for weakness. We don't want war. We never wanted war. But we will not be victims anymore. We will not surrender our worlds." The chamber erupted, but Olivia raised her voice above the chaos. "I am proposing amendments to the Council Charter. Real territorial protections for all species, independent arbitration for disputes, limits on military action against peaceful colonies. Changes that will make the Council a forum for equals, not a tool for exploitation." "And if the Council refuses?" the Valdorian asked. Olivia met his gaze without flinching. "Then humanity will withdraw from the Council and defend our interests independently, and every other young species watching will see that there's an alternative to subjugation. How long before your carefully maintained order starts to crumble?" The silence that followed was different. It was the silence of calculation. She could see them all, representatives from hundreds of species, reassessing their assumptions. 3 weeks later, the Council voted. The amendments passed. The Thaldorians protested but found themselves isolated, their arrogance now a liability. That night, Olivia looked out at the stars as a call came in from Earth. It was Nathan Pierce. "You did it," he said simply. "You actually did it." "We all did it," Olivia corrected. "Every person who refused to give up." Every scientist who worked in secret, every soldier who trained for a war they hoped would never come. This was about an entire species deciding they deserved better. "What happens now?" Nathan asked. Olivia smiled, watching a human patrol ship glide past. "Now we prove we meant it. We build alliances. We show the galaxy that strength doesn't have to mean cruelty. We become the example we wished someone had set for us. And if anyone tests us again, they'll learn what we already discovered. Humanity doesn't break." She thought of the children who would grow up never knowing what it felt like to be helpless, who would inherit a galaxy forced to recognize their worth. The struggles were far from over, but for the first time in 200 years, humanity faced the future not as supplicants but as equals. And that made all the difference. Thanks for watching. This story really makes you think about what it means to stand up for yourself, even against impossible odds. If you enjoyed this journey into humanity's future, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from across the galaxy. See you in the next one.